Hi, welcome to Mental Junk Food, the place where we talk about all things comics, sci-fi, horror, fantasy, pop culture, and everything in between. I am your host, CB Smallwood, and in case I didn't already say it, welcome to Mental Junk Food Live. This is maybe the third or fourth live stream that I've done. Not particularly super professional or anything like that just yet with it. But basically with this live stream, what I wanted to do, first and foremost, I wanted to thank all of my backers for Wildcat on Indiegogo. For those that don't know, I have a Indiegogo up right now for the comic book Wildcat. I currently have 13 backers. 20% funded with $297 raised for a fixed goal of $1,500. Now, for those that don't know, a fixed goal is basically you kind of have a fixed amount that you try to raise for your Indiegogo campaign, and if you do not raise that amount, then all the money gets refunded back to the backers, and I don't get any money. And I like it like that because even though it sounds harsh, and it could be a harsh reality for me within 30 days or so for me personally, but if you're not able to meet that goal, then it probably doesn't need to be funded in the first place. It probably doesn't need to be printed, if that makes sense. I'm kind of talking all over the place. But anyway, I wanted to thank the backers and stuff because I really do appreciate it. And I even appreciate the people that have taken the time to go to the Indiegogo and just look at it and kind of shop around, see if it interests them or not. And I'm sure there's probably people that's went to it and it's not my cup of tea, which I respect that. But there's been a total of 387 visits. So that is pretty cool. I think that's pretty neat. But there's plenty of time to thank the rest of my backers here in a little bit. And I just don't want to make this whole show about that because I think you all will get bored. But I just wanted to let the people know that have backed me. I see who backs me. And I appreciate it. I don't care if it's $5, if it's $12, $25, or whatever. Whatever you contributed, I appreciate it all, because, as somebody that's worked in restaurants, I was an electrician for a week. That wasn't a bad job. Been in carpentry work, but don't ask me to work on your house or wire it either. I've done all kinds of oddball jobs, everything from working in journalism to working in radio and just all kinds of different stuff. Anyway, worked in tons of restaurants though. And, to me, a person's time is the most valuable thing that you have to give in this life. Because once time is spent, you don't get it back. It's not like gold or oil and everything like that. To me, I think your time is more valuable than that. And I think about these people out in the world that are working in restaurants or doing some dead-end job, flipping burgers, having to make anywhere from 100 to 200 burgers per hour, Whoppers and Whopper Juniors and whatever else there is. And for that hour, they get paid, depending on where you live in the United States, like $7 and something, to do all that. And so for somebody to take money out of their pocket and to give it to me, either because, they think Wildcat's an interesting concept or it looks cool, or maybe they like me personally, or maybe they just feel sorry for me, because that's always a possibility, or they just want to see me do well. I always think that's pretty cool. So regardless of why, you're giving money, I appreciate it. I just wanted to let my backers know that. Now for the interesting stuff, see if I can actually pull it up here in an article. You see how well prepared I come with this stuff. Let's see. Years ago, back in 2016, I wrote an article, and I actually had brought this up recently on Twitter, and I'll quit being kind of ambiguous about it. This article that I had written was entitled "The Top 10 Reasons Why Marvel Comics Sucks," and I'd written this back in, I think it was February the 8th of 2016. And I forgot all about it. I used to blog there for a little while, and I was doing like a collection of articles and stuff, and a lot of stuff didn't even get published because I was kind of stockpiling for the day when I would, do a YouTube channel, and I wanted to kind of have like typed up all ready to go content. But anyway, it just didn't pan out that way for one reason or another. And I remember back in February of 2016 when I was doing the blogging thing, I decided to write about this topic because I remember at this time I was starting to kind of come back into comics after being gone for so long. I was a hardcore fan back in the 90s, going into the early millennium, and I was especially, I don't know what you would call it, a Marvelite. Would that be a good word for it? A Marvelite? Oh, before going any further, I see you, Dave. Dave Hingley writes, just checking in quick before I head off to work. Well done on the progress of the IGG. Hope you get there. Did you watch the new Joker trailer, and what did you think about it? Okay, I did watch the new Joker trailer, and I like it. I'll get back to what I was talking about here in a second. But I did watch the new Joker trailer. I did enjoy it. I feel like when I watch it, I usually get these, when I drop names and stuff like that, I tend to be very dyslexic, so you have to forgive me. But when it comes to Joker, I feel like the film puts me in mind of Martin Scorsese. The kind of like the aesthetic of it and the pacing and everything. I mean, I've not watched the movie. I just by going by the trailer, but it has a very Martin Scorsese feel about it. It reminds me of seeing something from like Goodfellas or something like that. You know what I'm saying? And so based on that, it makes me feel like it has the potential to be really good. But the thing that I think is interesting about the Joker trailer is that when I watch it, I'm wondering who the antagonist is, because clearly they've made Joker, I assume, the protagonist, which is sort of like the good guy. Just because somebody is the protagonist doesn't necessarily mean that they are good, but they're sort of like the main character of the story. Okay? But anyway, in this case, it is DC Comics' The Joker. Now, it seemed like I read somewhere that they're not going to stick with that, staying loyal to the comics and stuff like that. So you never know how the movie's going to turn out, what all's going to be happening in it and stuff like that. But having said that, it looks interesting. It looks cool. I love the actor that they chose to play the Joker. But as far as like who the bad guy is, who the antagonist, who's going to be the person or persons or the situation that is causing the Joker problems, that's the question. And it seems to me, society's heading in a very, very interesting direction right now, especially in the U.S., but it's also kind of worldwide. Let me see if I can bring this back full circle. I remember when Christopher Nolan's, which Batman movie was it? The one that, that had the Joker in it. So there was Batman Begins. Was it Batman Dark Knight? I think it was Dark Knight. I don't know, whatever. But one of the Christopher Nolan Batmans, it had Joker in it. And that Joker was very interesting because he was portrayed as an anarchist. And I guess that's pretty much what Joker is anyway. And I felt like Christopher Nolan nailed that Joker. He really got a great actor and Heath Ledger to portray him, and that portrayal was really good, and the way it was written and stuff. But the interesting thing about the Heath Ledger Joker in, I think it is The Dark Knight, is that he was very anti-capitalist. He burnt that big pile of money, and it wasn't just anti-capitalist. He's just anti-everything. He's a contrarian. He's just whatever. He wants to see it all burn. And he actually became, and a lot of people don't talk about this, but he kind of became a symbol for a lot of socialists and communists. So, a lot of yous going to say, well, you're talking crazy, CB. But trust me, if you dig around on the internet, you'll see that. Anybody can relate to just about anything if you dig further enough. But I really do feel that Joker became a symbol to a lot of people who are sympathetic to socialist causes. And a lot of people with those type of sympathies identified with the Joker. And Joker, because of Heath Ledger's portrayal of him, became very, very popular at one point. I mean, you couldn't go to any comic book convention, for a certain period of time without seeing somebody doing cosplay of that type of Joker. And well, anyway, let's bring it back full circle. I'm sorry, I kind of drone on, but it's hard for me to get my points out sometimes because of the way my mind works. But getting back to the new Joker movies, based purely on the preview that I saw, the trailer or whatever, this looks like more of the continuation of the same. Now, there is, I've seen like maybe 2 or 3 trailers of the new Joker movie, and it seems like in one of them, Jens can correct me if I'm wrong in the chat because I typically am, but there was like a scene in the subway where there's lots of anarchy going on, and there's like protest, and I believe the Wayne family, for those who aren't hardcore comic book fans, the Wayne family, Bruce Wayne is Batman, blah, 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 and they're millionaires. So you kind of see where I'm going with this. So basically, there's a lot of people that are protesting or involved in some type of protest or some type of riot breaks out, having something to do with the Wayne family, which I like that story-wise, but I also think the subtext of it, of the slight element of anarchist and socialism and stuff like that, rebelling against the establishment. I think that's kind of in there. And I feel like that's what the antagonist is going to be in the new Joker movie. And, if you're asking me, which nobody is, but I'm just hypothetically for anyone that's watching, if anyone asks me, am I cool with that or down with that? I really don't care. My issue is I don't care what the protagonist or antagonist is of a movie. I just want it to be good. I just want it to be good. And I feel like it could be. Because it does have a very Martin Scorsese look to it, So I like that. I like that 1970s kind of grime. Let me go back to the chat and answer a few more questions, and then I'll try to circle back around to my original thing I was talking about, which was the top 10 reasons why Marvel Comics suck. It was an article that I wrote back in 2016, and I kind of used a sensationalist headline to gain attention, and I really, really did. If I could have worded it more politely, I probably would have, but if I'd done that, nobody would have read it. But anyway, let me answer a couple of things in the chat, and then I will get right back to that. Just back to Project CV, bonus points for free shipping. You're welcome, Sideburns. You're welcome. The free shipping thing, when I was, this is the first Indiegogo that I've done, and I don't have it all figured out. I'm kind of a maroon, not a moron, a maroon. I'm a maroon when it comes to this stuff. But I don't know. It kills my soul, honestly. It does. To price things that I feel is kind of high. Does that make sense? I mean, to me, there's a lot of Indiegogo campaigns, and I'm no exception, because I've got some prices that are, and I know it too. But let me pull my campaign up so I'm not talking out my butt. I want to make sure that I get my numbers right, because I can't even remember what some of my tiers are. But I have like $12 for a physical copy of the book, $5 for a PDF, $20 for a physical copy and digital copy. I'm probably not selling my stuff well here, but I'm trying to explain the pricing and how I kind of feel about it. Signed copy and digital copy for $25, yada, yada, yada. But anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, yeah. Me being a rookie with Indiegogo. Well, with the pricing and stuff like that, it bothers me, the idea of a $20 comic book and stuff like that. And I think you all agree with that one way or another. I mean, but I think, no, I don't think, I know the reason that the majority of people on Indiegogo and probably on Kickstarter, I haven't checked their prices, that the reason that a lot of people start their prices out at $20 is well, first of all, you have to get the book printed, and that costs so much money to have somebody print it for you. And then you have to have that same company ship those books to you. So they don't ship them for free. I haven't found anyone that does that yet, but so you have to pay for the shipping too. So you have to pay for it to get printed, then you have to pay for it to get shipped to you. And so now you got all these books, and then you have to bag and board them, or however it is. Everybody does it different. You have to get the stuff together so you can ship them to the people that backed your book. And so you have to pay for shipping twice. And so for the cost of the book, the cost of shipping twice and all this other stuff, it starts to run into quite a bit of money. And so when people price their books on Indiegogo and Kickstarter for like $20 starting out, it starts to make sense. I don't like that. I wished it wasn't like that. I wish that we could get those prices way down, But I think there's something else to think about when it comes to prices, when it comes to the $20 on up range. I think I look at $20 plus as an investment when it comes to independent comic books on Indiegogo or Kickstarter. I look at that as an investment. When you find, and I'm not plugging myself. Well, I sort of am, but I'm plugging anybody else on Indiegogo or Kickstarter. When you find an artist, a comic book, or whatever that you believe in, and you pluck your hard-earned money down for that person, for me, sometimes it's not just about because I like the look of the book and whatever I've seen of it. I'm also investing in that person, in that new company, because I want it to succeed and I want them to do more, And sometimes to be able to do that, you give a little bit more so that way that they can build. Does that make sense? It takes a lot of capital, money. It takes a lot of money to do anything, When I did the first issue of Wildcat, God, I bet you are getting bored of looking at this logo here. Check this out. I did this animated thing. You see that? Did it do it? I don't know if it did or not. Probably didn't see it. But anyway, oh, there it goes. Yeah, I did that right before I went live. I wished I could figure out how to get rid of those pixel things. Now you see what I went and done. I went and forgot what I was talking about. Well, I think I was talking about money. Oh, yeah. Prices and stuff like that. Yeah, all that stuff. I lost a viewer. They got tired of listening to my shenanigans. That's sad. And I'm being sincere when I say that. But anyway, all right, so pricing and stuff like that, blah, 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 blah. So when I did my pricing for my book, it wasn't so much to try to outdo anybody else or anything like that. I just thought to myself, okay, so if I'm just like a regular reader, and I'm going on the Wildcat Indiegogo page, and I'm looking at these prices, I don't know who CB Smallwood is. I don't know if he's going to do another one. I don't know what the interiors look like. Cover looks cool. At least I hope everybody thinks the cover looks cool. But the cover looks cool. And so I don't really know much. And I feel like personally, because I'm an unknown name, an unknown brand, an unknown company with an unknown character, I try to price things as low as I could to, you know, to make up for that. The $12 comic, it does include the shipping with that. My only Achilles heel is worldwide shipping. Oh man, looking into that, that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt bad. But it depends on how many people contribute and stuff like that. And if push comes to shove, I'm going to try to eat the cost on the shipping if it comes to it, because I really want you to get these books. All right, so Dave Hingley writes free shipping even overseas. That's pretty cool. Well, I didn't have it really planned out really well because it's my first Indiegogo. Because, like, for example, I looked at how much it would cost to ship one comic book from the U.S. to Portugal, and without even including the cost of the book or anything, it's like close to $20. But I decided in my head that, if somebody backs it and my campaign's fulfilled and stuff like that, if it cuts into the profits, let it be. I will pay the cost of that. If it is what it is. I'll figure it out when I get there. Let's see. Honorary Yacha. I'm terrible at pronouncing stuff. Honorary Yacha. The Joker will be his own antagonist. I only saw this as it appears that they will really try to explore the Joker's mindset. Yeah, that's one of the other things that I enjoy about what I've seen from the previews about the Joker movie. I like the mental stuff. I like the psychology and all the stuff, and getting into the psychosis of what makes Joker, because we've not really seen that in a Batman movie before. We've seen hints of things, but we've never really got into it. So that's one of the things I'm looking forward to in the movie, because I think a lot of sad, tragic, harsh stuff is going to happen to the Joker that is it's going to be pretty bad, and I think it's going to be. I think the audience is going to find themselves relating to the Joker, and that's some of the best stories is when you can relate to the villains, because when you humanize villains, I think it makes the villains a little bit better. I guess, like, for example, the best examples I can think of when you think of, like, Magneto. Part of what makes Magneto is, he's not just a mutant, he's also Jewish. And I'm not sure how they did it in the comics, but if you go by the movies, he was a Holocaust survivor. And so seeing what the worst of humanity can do to one another kind of shaped him as a person. And when he saw similar things starting to happen to mutants, because of what he endured and because what he lived through, he decided that, he's not going to allow that to happen to mutant kind. He didn't want a second Holocaust. From a movie perspective, I don't think it's quite lined out that way in the comics, but there is an element to that in the comics, But anyway, like you look at, for example, Thanos. I like the take. Some people didn't, and some people did, but I like the take that they did with Thanos in the movies. In Avengers Endgame and all this other stuff, Infinity War, because he had a reason for doing what he did. They gave him a reason. His reason was he is a survivor of Titan. He was like a guy who was trying to warn them that they had finite resources and all these wars and all the lack of, they're going to run out of everything, and the overpopulation, all this other stuff. It's going to lead to a lot of problems, and nobody listened to him because they thought his solution was too cruel or too inhuman. And so basically, that kind of shaped who Thanos was. So I like it when you add a little depth to villains. I think it's pretty cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing them add that depth, whatever it is, to the Joker. Let's see. Sideburns writes, why is there a zombie dog, by the way? Well, the reason I did the zombie dog is I thought it looked cool, and I just wanted a quick, kind of like a quick, not an avatar. What do you call it? A quick thumbnail. I just wanted a quick, cool looking little thumbnail that would get people's attention. That's pretty much all that is. There was, I was looking up pictures of cats I was going to put on there. But then I typed in evil dog, and this popped up, and I was like, yeah, that looks pretty gnarly. It actually looks like it's from Evil Dead. Looks like something that Sam Raimi would have cooked up. All right, honorary Yacha. Gotta bounce. Have a good stream. I really appreciate it. I appreciate everybody that took the time to, be in the stream as long as you have, I would, yeah, very much appreciate it. That sounds kind of insincere when I say it like that, but I don't know. Josh Fox. I know I'm probably not pronouncing your last name right. It's basically, if everybody's last name isn't Smith, you can guarantee that I will mispronounce it. Guaranteed. I don't know why I'm like that. I feel like I'm like mentally dyslexic somehow, whatever. But anyway, Josh writes, at the top tier support level are the villains you get to name already designed and written into the story. Yes, they are. They everything. They're already drawn, inked, and colored. That top tier is pretty much to be named one of those characters. I try to think of some cool tiers and stuff for people that really wanted to contribute and give bang for their buck. And I would have done it to where I would have drawed somebody in or something like that for a tier. But for me, it's really important that for being a first go at Indiegogo and all this other stuff, I want to make sure that I get this book out to people. I don't have the audience and the support. Well, I shouldn't say it like that. How should I say it? I don't have the. Well, I'm not. Okay, I'll put it this way. I'm not Ethan Van Sciver. I'm not Jim Lee. I'm not, insert your favorite artist here. I don't have an audience, like a big audience that's aware who I am and what I've done, because I don't have this big career, behind me and stuff. And so one misstep or one, thing that I do wrong can really set me back as I'm starting to start my comic book career going. So it's really important for me that once this Indiegogo is done and if everything gets fulfilled and backed and stuff like that, I want to make sure that I be able to fulfill this to my backers as quickly as possible. So the comic, it is penciled, inked, and colored. I'm still working on the script because I really want to do a good job on that. So anywhere that art-wise that I feel like I'm lacking, I feel like the story is going to be the thing that really nails it and brings it home. You ever listen to a band that has a really awesome music? I don't care if it's metal, alt rock, punk, pop, whatever, country. Anyway, have you ever listened to a band and they sound really good? and it's like you're really getting into the groove of the music, and then the singer comes on, and then the singer sucks. The singer has destroyed that song, has destroyed that band, because that singer is just terrible, terrible. Well, I feel like in a lot of ways, in comic books, the writer is kind of like the unsung. It's sort of like the singer, okay? A writer is sort of like a singer. And a good writer or a bad writer can make and break your comic. There's only so much an artist can do to bring readers in. You know, like a cool cover and cool interiors can be enough to make people buy your comic. But once they buy it and they start to read it, if the writing is bad, then they're going to be less likely, even with cool art, to buy that book a second go around. There's just too many great books out right now. Well, there's a lot of crappy ones too. But there's a lot of variety of comics out in the world right now. So I guess the point that I'm trying to make is when I get when I fulfill my Indiegogo, assuming I meet all the fixed goals and stuff like that, I want to make sure I get my book out to backers, and I want to do it as quickly as possible. And the book is pretty much finished for the most part. I just need to finish the script and then get it lettered, and that's it. You know, maybe touch up a few colors here and there. You know, because make sure things ain't too gaudy looking, because I penciled, inked, wrote, lettered, colored. I did it all myself, and I had to teach myself how to color, teach myself how to letter, and how to write. How to teach myself how to write, all for this first issue. So it's yeah. But anyway, getting back to the thing about the tiers, Josh was asking, you know, at the top tier level, you know, about naming the villains in the story. You know, have they already been drawn and all this other stuff? They have, and I just don't feel comfortable with trying to draw new characters and put them into the story, because I feel like it's going to add time to the Indiegogo. I probably should have said that to begin with instead of going to that big spiel that I just went into. And that's the trouble with me. You know, once I get talking on something, I'll talk in circles, and then I'll go into like verbal diagrams and verbal diarrhea, and I just can't be stopped, you know. All right, so we're 30 minutes into this live stream, and I'm getting ready to end it here shortly, because, you know, some of you might be, I don't know, getting ready for work. Maybe some of you are getting ready for bed. You know, in my case, it's like 4 in the morning, so got to get ready for bed here soon. But I figured that I'm going to wrap this up, this whole big thing, by talking about an article that I written back in 2016. And that article is the top 10 reasons why Marvel Comics suck. Now, first of all, the reason that I started with that headline back in 2016 was I wanted something sensational, because, to be honest, if you don't have sensational stuff in your YouTube videos or in your blogs or vlogs or whatever, people tend to overlook things. And you know, some of you may disagree with that, but hey, Fway Storm, I see you there in the chat. Yes, awesome. But some of you may disagree on the idea of sensationalism, using that to sell a product that you have. But here's the way that I look at it. Okay, it's sort of like you ever been driving down the road, and this is going to sound terrible, but you know, bear with me. Have you ever been driving down the road and you look and there's a car wreck? How many of you slow down? Yeah. How many of you slow down to see what's going down? You know, how many of you kind of lean over so you can look past that train of cars in front of you to see the mayhem ahead of you, to get a better view of the ambulance and the cops and all this other stuff, to kind of make out what's going on? And this isn't an indictment on any of you dear listeners, or me or anybody else, or on humanity at large. But the point that I'm trying to get to when it comes to sensational headlines, using that to grab attention so people check your stuff out, is that it's actually a good thing when we want to slow down and look at a car wreck and stuff like that, because it goes to, it's like a psychological thing. It's human nature. We want to be aware of danger. We want to be aware of things that are wrong, of things that are dangerous, of things that are a threat. So that way we can spread that word to other people so that they know to be wary of it, especially our children, our offspring, our siblings, and that sort of thing. We don't think of it like that because this is more like a subconscious thing. But when you see people respond to negative things, like on social media or anything like that, and people are more likely to respond to negative things on social media than they are to positive. It's something that's wired in humanity where we feel the need to respond to stuff that is negative because it needs to be fixed. It's a problem. It's something that is a threat. It's a threat to either you financially, either to your physical safety, either to the whole. It's some type of something that has to be dealt with. And so that is why people are drawn toward the negative. That is why, even me, when I see something online that's like, oh, this person has done such and such, I click on it. I'm not clicking on the video of how a cat got rescued out of a tree. Oh, yeah, well, I guess so, maybe. But you get the idea. People are drawn toward the negative, and it's not necessarily a bad thing in the sense that it's just human nature kind of wants to be aware of the dangers in the world, and you kind of have to use sensationalism to sell stuff. And I'm kind of repeating myself, so let me get back to the topic at hand. Top 10 reasons why Marvel Comics suck. So that's why I created that, because otherwise I feel like people wouldn't have read it. So I did this article back in Monday, February the 8th, 2016, and I published it on Blogger. And at this time, I had just came back to comics after being gone for like several years. I had missed a lot of big events that Marvel had going on. Everything from, I guess, like there was like a Skrull War, and there was like some big Magneto storyline. There's like two of them actually. One where Magneto tilted the world's axis, and another one where there was a House of M storyline and all this other stuff. I'd kind of just, and I think it wasn't just me, I think a lot of people had kind of jumped ship from Marvel right at the 2000 mark, right in the 2000s. And every time I try to come back and check books out, I didn't recognize any of the characters. I didn't recognize any of the X-Men, any other Marvel character for that matter. Everything was just so different, and it just felt so alien. There was no real jumping on point for a lot of it, or at least in my opinion anyway. And so by the time of 2016, the price of comics had continued to raise at ridiculous levels. They went from just doing like a nickel here, a dime here, 25 cents to 50 cents, that they were raising the price of comics almost like $1 a year. They they weren't messing around anymore. Not to sound old or anything like that, but I remember a time when I could dig quarters and change, loose change, out of like my mama's couch and in the cupboards and stuff, and I'd have like a pocket full of change, and I could go to the local gas station and buy like 3 or 4 comics with that. So I don't know if that's an indictment of how old I am, or I don't feel like I'm old, but my hair and my hairline says otherwise. But anyway, so I wrote this article just out of frustration, because people were starting to complain back in 2016 of what was wrong with Marvel. People were complaining about one thing and then another thing, but I felt like people were missing the big picture. It wasn't just one thing that Marvel was doing wrong. They were doing a lot of stuff. So I just want to kind of write it all down. Now, before I get into this, and I'm not going to spend a long time on it because I've done got it all typed up, and I just don't want to bore you all to death more than I already am. But when I typed all this up, I posted it to Facebook, and it blew up. Would you believe that? For the first time in my life, people were actually paying attention to something that I created. I created this article, and like I got like 930 views, and it was posted on this Facebook group. And then there was this guy who commented, what was it he said? He had posted some article that he had done eons ago, and they had him take it down, and he was all miffed about it. And I have a feeling he had played a role in having my article taken down from that group, and sour grapes. But for whatever, my brain, I do stupid stuff. I can't stand that about myself. My brain never thought like, hey, why don't you make a YouTube video about this? It just never clicked. It was dumb, very dumb. I don't know. But anyway, so here is an abbreviation of what I thought back in 2016 of why I thought Marvel was not doing too hot. The number one thing, in no particular order, by the way, too many relaunches. And I cited the example of the Incredible Hulk because in 2016, the Incredible Hulk had been relaunched 6 times. Starting first in 1999, then relaunched again in 2007. They did a fake issue 600 using wonky math to pull that off. Then there was a very short and brief Mark Silvestri run back in 2011. Then in 2012 they had Indestructible Hulk by Mark Waid. And then in 2015 Adamadius Cho. How do you pronounce his name? It's like the Mozart guy, sort of. Well, anyway, Cho was the Hulk there in 2015. And anyway, yeah, too many relaunches, and the argument that I made was that it dilutes the value of your comics. It dilutes it all, because there was a time at Marvel and DC when the numbers went up to like issue 300, 400, 500, 600 of any random title that they had. And by doing constant reboots, it kind of made it feel like the series that you was collecting before wasn't of any value, if that makes sense. Mr. Storm asked, have you read Immortal Hulk? Yes, I've read the first I think 6 issues, the first 6 issues, and I really enjoyed it. It's one of the first things that I've read from Marvel that I've really enjoyed. I thought they did really good, and the writer on that book really gets Hulk. He's kind of went and taken. I wished I could remember who that writer was that replaced Peter David there for a short while. Paul Jenkins, I think it's Paul Jenkins. He kind of writes Hulk the way Paul Jenkins did, very dark. Get into the psychological aspects. Also, sort of like Bill Manilow. Bill Manilow was an awesome Hulk writer. He doesn't really get the appreciation he deserves. But I felt, that 5 or 6 issues that I read of Immortal Hulk, and I recommend anyone else, if you've not read Immortal Hulk, that you need to do so, because that is a good series. I really like, I think it's Joe Bennett is the one drawing it. I really like his art in it. And some guy named Aaron. I'm not familiar with the writer just yet, and I ain't got it pulled up, But that writer is doing an awesome job. He's crafting a really well thought out story, and there's all these little elements in there, and as you read further and further, you kind of see how it all ties together. So he's really good. He's really good. Anyway, back to my top 10 reasons why back in 2016 I wrote that Marvel sucked. The first reason I wrote was too many relaunches, and I cited the Incredible Hulk as an example with up to 5 or 6 relaunches. And the relaunches were increasing from a decade to a couple of years to a year. Like they was relaunching the book every year, and then it was getting to be like in a period of 6 months. And it wasn't just the Incredible Hulk; it was the X-Men. I think like Captain America and Spider-Man, and just every comic that Marvel was publishing, was getting constantly relaunched. The number two reason that I believe Marvel wasn't doing too hot back in 2016 was the price. I thought that the price of comics was just getting outrageous. There was a time when I remember comics were 60 cents, $1.25, $1.50, $1.75, $1.99. I lived through that, so I guess that makes me old. And then eventually, sometime in the late 90s, they raised the price to $1.99 an issue. And then after that point, it seems like every year or two, they raise the price of comics, so it goes from $1.99 to $2.99 to $3.99 to $4.99. And so it's got to a point now to where, do you want to buy a gallon of milk or do you want to buy a comic book? You want to eat or you want to read? And I also cited within this price, I talked about, and I didn't do a really good job in articulating this back in 2016, but I actually wrote in length about Diamond Distributors, how they had become the sole distributor for all comic books, which I think still to this day is absurd, because it creates a monopoly. And not a lot of people know this, but Diamond Distributors was taken to court over them being a monopoly over the comic book industry, because they simply have too much power. And the reason that it's a problem is that they can raise the prices of them distributing. So for anyone that doesn't know what a comic book distributor does, or what Diamond Distributors does, they do a couple of things, but their main job is when Marvel and DC print their comics, they have them shipped to, I guess, a Diamond Distributor warehouse or something like that. And then what Diamond Distributor does is they take those books and they send them to comic book shops. And it is because of Diamond Distributors that you don't have comics in gas stations no more. You don't have them in pharmacies and drugstores no more. You don't have them in well, they're back in Walmarts now, but it's not quite the same as it used to be. But you don't have comics in mom and pop stores, because Diamond Distributors came up with the idea like, hey, we just need to sell directly to, comic stores. There's been some good things that came out of that, and then some bad things, and I feel like it's a bad thing in the long run. But yeah, they were taken to court, Diamond Distributors was, and in 1997 they got a notice from the U.S. Justice Department. In the end, nothing came of it, and in the words of a Wikipedia article, for anybody can go in and edit a Wikipedia article, so you take it with a grain of salt. The Wikipedia article best sums it up as this: the investigation was closed in November of 2000 with no further action deemed necessary on the basis that, although Diamond enjoyed a monopoly in the North American comic book direct market distribution, they did not enjoy a monopoly on book distribution. Books including non-comic books. So basically, let me put that in layman's terms. Basically, the Justice Department of the United States agreed that Diamond Distributors was a monopoly. They agreed with it. But because they don't take comics seriously, and it didn't affect regular book publishers, well, they just laughed and closed the case. The government looking out for the small guy. And, don't get me wrong, I think Diamond Distributors is a fine company with probably some good people in their employ from top to bottom, but there can be no denying that having one distributor for all comics in the civilized world is not a good thing. And they've contributed to the rise of prices, to the limit of the reach of comic books, and basically I would compare the comic book industry in the U.S. to basically the tobacco industry in the U.S. There's a direct correlation. You notice when they started cracking down on the tobacco industry about them marketing and then marketing to kids way back in the day. I mean, the Flintstones were smoking cigarettes. That's how far back. But the government in the U.S. cracked down on it and says you can't market to kids with your cigarettes. And when that happens, slowly over time, the smoking base, the people smoking in the U.S. started to decline. And then the U.S. became more proactive with these ads and making people aware that, smoking causes cancer and it has bad effects and stuff. And then there was laws and legislation passed in cities across America where you couldn't smoke here and there, and that further cut down on smoking. So anyway, why that relates to comics is Diamond Distributors kind of did the same thing. They limited a new audience from getting access to comics, which is kids. So a lot of people reading comics today are adults, and there's nothing wrong with adults reading comics. I read comics. It's cool, but like if you want it to be passed on to the next generation, that means kids, You gotta have the kids gotta be reading comics, or it's not going to work. It's not sustainable, at least in my opinion. I could be wrong about that. So, all right, number three reason back in 2016, I wrote an article saying Marvel sucks, was creative teams leave too early. There's a lot of creative teams that were really awesome back in 2016, and since then, that worked together that was way too short-lived. The days when you could pick up your favorite comic and know you'll be greeted by the masterful works of a creative team that you really like, they're over. Of course, I am referring to the writer and artist duos that bring life to some of your favorite comic characters or comics, whatever. It's a rare thing to see two comic book creators staying on the same book for an extended period of time. Do you remember what it was like when writer Larry Hama and artist Adam Kubert worked on Wolverine together for several years? That was awesome. At least to me, anyway. I really enjoyed those books. How about when Chris Claremont and John Byrne were on Uncanny X-Men? There's a lot of people love that those two guys' run together. It's a very definitive, iconic run on X-Men. And for the even more old scooter, moped? Should I say moped instead? No, the old school guys. Even the more old school guys. Do you remember the Roy Thomas with John Buscema on Avengers? So forth and so on. So you kind of get the idea of these iconic teams. But near the start of the new millennium, that was the beginning of the end of that trend. New creative teams only worked together for like 5 or 6 issues, which I have to say, Immortal Hulk seems to be the exception. Well, I think they're getting a little bit better on it overall on this. But for a while, back in 2016, Marvel was bad for this. I mean, they didn't keep nobody on the books past 5 or 6 issues other than the writer. The artist would continually change. And it was actually, it was done on purpose. The idea was they wanted to double their output of comics a month by having multiple artists contribute to a single series. And that was just, I personally felt that was dumb. The number four reason that I put that I wasn't too happy with Marvel back in 2016 was the lack of continuity. Now, when I read this article today, I thought the writing in this was starting to get pretty shoddy at this point. But I think a lot of people agree with the point that I was trying to get across, even though I kind of mixed up what continuity was with a shared universe a little bit. But back in 2016, Marvel was more and more embracing getting rid of continuity. So they didn't really care about the back history of a lot of characters as much as they used to. They just kind of ignoring a lot of stuff, And when you do that, it kind of destroys a lot of hard work a lot of artists and writers throughout the decades have put into characters, and a lot of readers like that continuity. I like those backstories because it enriches those characters. It makes those characters mean something. And then, Marvel was also getting rid of a shared universe back in 2016, because for whatever reason they felt that writers felt restricted by having to do a shared universe. And I guess the editors that they must have been hiring at the time hated having to figure out where all the characters were month by month, and how to make it all come together, in terms of crossovers and stuff like that. So getting rid of continuity and getting rid of a shared universe was a terrible decision of Marvel back in 2016, in my humble opinion. I remember at one point there was a storyline that was really cool where Wolverine was brainwashed by Hydra, and he went around and started killing people. He even killed a member of the X-Men. I think it was like North Star or something like that. This character, it used to be part of Alpha Flight, but for whatever reason, he's part of the X-Men now. He killed this character, and who's part of the X-Men, and is a big deal. And the X-Men were hunting down Wolverine, and this is what was happening in the Wolverine comic. But during that very same month, there was a comic. There's like Wolverine and the X-Men was being published, and some other, Uncanny X-Men and all this other stuff. I can't remember what all it was. And Wolverine was fighting side by side with the X-Men to take down some bad guy, and I thought that was ridiculous. Like, why would he be doing that? That storyline in Wolverine hadn't wrapped up yet, so hypothetically, they should be still fighting him, because he's brainwashed by Hydra. So there's a lot of dumb stuff like that happened during 2016 that I didn't like. The number 5 reason I wasn't happy with Marvel in 2016 was they had an oversaturated market. Way too much stuff. And it's still true today, actually. In the article that I had written, I actually researched how many Deadpool books that Marvel was putting out almost at one whack. And there was Deadpool versus X-Force, Hawkeye versus Deadpool Team Up, Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, Deadpool Kills Deadpool, Wolverine and Deadpool, Lady Deadpool, Deadpool versus Carnage, Deadpool Gauntlet, Deadpool Core, Cable and Deadpool, Deadpool versus Thanos, Return of the Living Deadpool. It's just a lot of Deadpool. It's like if Marvel had something that was successful, they would milk it to death. The first thing that they started milking to death was Wolverine, and Wolverine ended up with he had his own book, and then they also came out with several spin-off titles such as Weapon X, Wolverine and the X-Men, Savage Wolverine, and there might have been a few others. I can't remember what they were. But it was just too much. It was too much, with all that out there, I sound like I'm arguing for less choice, but I'm really not, It's just oversaturated the market. It really did. It's too much to keep up with, in my opinion. Reason number 6 I wasn't too happy with Marvel in 2016 was too many big events, just too much. I really liked the Age of Apocalypse storyline that they did with the X-Men, and I enjoyed the following year the event that they did with Onslaught, which I thought was cool. But after that, they did another big event that summer, and then another big event, and then another big event. Every summer they was doing a big event. And I thought, whoa, hang on a minute. Yins are just milking this now. When I say big event, what do I mean? I mean like it's a big crossover with all the characters in a shared universe or in a in a comic book company. So like Hulk, the Avengers, Iron Man, Spider-Man, the X-Men, Fantastic Four. All these people coming together to fight a common foe. Okay, that's what I mean by big event. So every summer, Marvel was doing a big event ever since Onslaught. And I remember when they did that first big event after Onslaught, that's like, it just felt like too much to me. And like, because Onslaught destroyed a big chunk of New York, he obliterated it, So, like, I guess, like, this is sometime after 2001, and, you had the Twin Towers in New York and all that stuff going on. And to kind of bring it together, uh, New York is still recovering, and still recovering from that. And a lot of people are still affected by that in New York, well, nationwide. Well, Onslaught, and I know it's a comic book, I know it's fictional and stuff like that, but hypothetically, if Onslaught was real and the Onslaught incident really happened, it wasn't like 2 or 3 buildings that got took down. It was like a whole city block. And there were like sentinels and everything flying through the air. It was apocalyptic. I mean, that would have had effects, nationwide, on how people viewed mutants and everything like that. It would have been a big thing, and I just felt like the X-Men and the Marvel Universe never really got a rest period. There's something to be said to kind of dialing it back and just kind of focusing on little things. I'm no writer, and I can't really explain all the terminology, really well, but things such as character development and these little small contained stories and stuff like that. You can tell a big story that's kind of little, that's self-contained, that has big impact, without having to have it be like a big universal crusher, a big event that involves the whole Marvel universe. And I just felt there was too many big events. It was just, if they would do one every 2 years, I think that would be better, because they could really build up to that and do something cool. But instead, it was every year. It's just too much. All right, number 7, lack of creative restraint. Now, there's 10 of these, and I'm going to try to throw these out quicker. Number 7, lack of creative restraint. So basically, I remember back in 2016, at one point, they had come out with a book called Frankencastle. Now, if you've not read this book, it is a fun book. I really enjoyed it. I really did. The art was awesome. I'm a big Rick Remender. I can't pronounce his last name. I can't pronounce nobody's name. I was a big fan of him as a writer, And he did this series called Frankencastle, and basically what had happened is Punisher, in his own book, he had got killed by, I think, Wolverine's son, Daken, or something like that. Daken, I don't know what his name is. He got killed by Wolverine's son, I think. He got chopped up into pieces. Well, our good buddy, the writer Rick, he decided to put Frank Castle back together and make him Frankencastle. So he made him into like a Frankenstein monster type of character. And it's really cool and stuff, but here's the problem that I have with it. Okay, here's my issue with that. My issue with that is, what makes Punisher cool is he's a regular guy. If you shoot him, he's going to bleed. If you cut him, he's going to bleed. It's not going to take much to kill him. He's a regular Joe Blow. All right, and the only thing that separates him from you or I is his mind. He's very, very driven in the same way that Batman is. But different motivations, maybe. But very similar, but different. And Punisher had something very horrible happen to him. I mean, like, he experienced a lot of horrible stuff in war. And when he came back home and he had his family, and his family was taken from him in a brutal way, and he decided, he's going to start a war on crime, and that's the story. And what makes it cool is, like, anybody hypothetically could be the Punisher or anything like that, and so it makes it interesting in that way, I guess. But once you take the Punisher and give him superpowers or anything like that, and in this case you make him Frankencastle, even though it's cool, it's too much. And so for me personally, I wish that they would have did that storyline as a what if in the What If series or something like that, or like in the Ultimate Universe or something. But that's just me. And so, number 7, when I say lack of creative restraint, that's what I mean. Sometimes it's good to dial it back. When something kind of goes against the very nature of what makes the character cool in the first place, it's probably a good idea not to go that route. I don't know. That's my opinion. Number 8, the number 8 reason why I wasn't too happy with Marvel in 2016 was Marvel wasn't listening to its readers. So, back then they had gotten rid of the letters column. Now, and since then they've brought it back in some books and stuff like that. But back then they had got rid of the letters column, and the letters column was a really important part of Marvel Comics because Marvel did it better than anybody. They really did when it come to the letters column, because it made the readers feel that they were part of a community, that they were part of, I dare say it, a family. And so I liked that. And they got rid of that. And not only did they get rid of that, but readers were trying to reach out to them online to say, hey, we don't like what you're putting out. And they refused to listen. So number 8 was the start of Marvel doesn't listen to its readers. Back in 2016, that was the start of that. You could say maybe even before that, but I want to go with 2016 on that. Number 9, no synergy between the comics and movies and animation. No synergy. So what do I mean by that? Well, back in the 90s, when you watch the X-Men cartoon, it was based off the 90s X-Men comic book. So Cyclops looks like Cyclops, Wolverine looks like Wolverine, Rogue, Gambit, Storm, Jubilee. They look like how they look like in the comic. And they behaved how they behaved in the comic. And the storylines, sometimes they deviated, but they followed fairly closely to the comic. And so when you have that type of synergy between the cartoon and the comic, that leads to sales. In my case, when I watched the cartoon, I became an X-Men fanatic. And so I bought every X-Men comic book I could. I even went and branched out and bought, Cable and X-Force. I guess like Externals and everything in the world. Externals, not Externals. Gosh, I'm losing train of thought. But I bought all kinds of X books. Is the point? Fast forward to 2016, and there's just no synergy, because you had the Uncanny Avengers. And at this point, they had Rogue, Deadpool, a bunch of new characters that I've not seen since, Quicksilver and Spider-Man, and a very old Captain America. This was the Uncanny Avengers, but at the same time, the Avengers was on the big screen. Okay. And who were the Avengers in the movies? You had Thor, Captain America, Scarlet Witch, Iron Man, Hawkeye, Hulk, and then Nick Fury. And so you didn't see that in the comic book at the time. And some people may say, well, that's not necessary. Well, I kind of think it is. I mean, if I was publishing it, I want pretty much most of the same characters in my comics being published as what's in the movie. So that way when people watch the movie, they can go to a comic book store and they're like, I recognize those characters on the cover of that comic, so I'm going to buy it. So that's what I mean by synergy. So in 2016, Marvel abandoned that. And the last reason that I gave back in 2016 that I wasn't too happy with Marvel was I felt that Mickey Mouse has no interest in publishing comics. And that's turned out to kind of be true, I feel like. One of the worst decisions Marvel ever made was putting themselves up for sale to Disney. And it was at a time when they were becoming extremely profitable due to Marvel Studios. It just didn't make sense to me as to why they would sell the company when it could have grown even bigger than what it was. Now Marvel is just one tentacle of Mickey Mouse, of Disney. And speaking of Disney, they own Marvel Studios, Marvel Comics, Lucasfilm, ESPN, ABC, A&E Network, Lifetime, History Channel, Hulu, Touchstone Pictures, Pixar Animation Studios, just to name a few. I mean, they they own an absurd amount of properties, land, intellectual stuff. I have not even touched like a fraction of what they own. So anyway, they own everything. Mickey Mouse controls a vast empire, and that empire runs on vast amounts of cash, as you would imagine. And here's something to think about. Why did Disney buy Marvel? Well, they don't really need Marvel Studios to make movies, for they already have studios to do just that. They don't need a publishing company because they have enough money to start their own. So why did Mickey Mouse, well, why did he buy Marvel Comics? The answer is, as we already well know, intellectual properties. They wanted Marvel for its former namesake, the House of Ideas. Endless ideas and beloved characters to make movies, t-shirts, theme park rides, cartoons, and whatever else about. And you're wondering what is wrong with that. Well, nothing for the most part, except for the most important, which is they, in my opinion, are not interested in making comics. Zero interest. In fact, I'm willing to wager that Mickey Mouse and his corporate heads see the publishing side of comics of Marvel as a financial loss more than anything. The amount of work and dedication it takes to build and maintain a successful printing company is daunting. And in the digital age where everything is like instant, you have to make sure your product is great and worth the wait. Mickey Mouse ain't got no time for that. I further submit that many of the relaunches and reboots of Marvel Comics comes from some head goon at Disney. That's my opinion. Why? They're constantly looking for fresh ideas for film and animation. So the comic book part that they own, which is Marvel Comics, comics to them is a testing ground for new ideas in which they're probably looking at sales and charts to figure out what people want. And one such example is them, well, I'm not going to get into that. That gets into some really controversial stuff, so I'm gonna wuss out on that one. But but basically, they use Marvel Comics as a testing ground for new ideas and cheap labor, because probably what they have to pay writers and storyboard artists for their movies is a lot more, if I'm willing to wager, than what they actually pay comic artists and writers that make the comics. So the bulk of the concepts, both visually and written, are far cheaper on the comic book side of things than what they would have to pay a storyboard artist, which they still pay storyboard artists and writers to write the stuff, but I don't know. I feel like it would be used as leverage to lower the price on things. I don't know. That's more of an opinion than anything, in my opinion of an opinion. So there you go. It says chat disconnected. So that's disappointing. So that means probably people aren't able to hear me right now. But I'll keep talking anyway. So I'm getting ready to wrap this video up. I'm sorry if I bored you with my article that I written back in 2016. And the only reason I brought it up is, I thought it was interesting of how, things could have been different had I did a YouTube a video about it back in 2016. Could you imagine? Because that was back in the start of when a lot of people who were starting to complain about things were really starting to take off, I think. I don't know. It's interesting. Anyway, to wrap this video up, I want to circle back to the main thing, which is thanking everybody. Before I go, though, Waystorm writes, the writer of Immortal Hulk is a good old British writer who started out with 2000 AD. I've been enjoying Immortal Hulk 2. Yeah, it's awesome. It really is. Okay, so to finish up the live stream, I just want to thank everybody that has been really patient and has actually, sat through this hour-long live stream. I streamed a lot longer than what I thought I would. I told you guys, once I get going, I just, I can't stop. But I will, I promise. But anyway, I really want to thank all my backers on Wildcat. I appreciate each and every single one of you, because, you work hard for your money, and for you to throw that money my way for unproven artists and unknown creator and unknown comic, unknown character and stuff like that, I don't take it for granted. I don't care if you give $5 or give whatever. I mean, I do care, but what I'm saying is I don't care what you contribute. The fact that you do contribute means the world to me, okay? And I want to thank you all for that. And that was the main reason for this video, because I just want to let you know that I see who can, Indiegogo tells me who contributes money to my campaign, and I see that. It's just that I've been so busy with Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I was fooling with Minds, but Minds kind of blows, in my opinion. I was fooling with all these different platforms. And it's hard to reply back to everybody, and then I'm working a day job and trying to post every day to let people know that Wildcat is on Indiegogo. And so I don't know. It's like a job in and of itself. And so I kind of get lost in that. But I just wanted to tell you all that I really appreciate it. And I thank you for sticking with me and backing me. And even the people who don't even back me, okay? And that sounded mean when I said that. There's like close to like 300 people or more that have went to my Indiegogo campaign. They've checked it out. They looked at it for one reason or another. They haven't backed it either because they think it sucks, which that's okay. Or maybe like they're waiting to payday, or they're waiting a little bit later to donate for whatever reason that they're not contributing. To the people that's not contributed yet, I appreciate you even taking the time to look at my Indiegogo, because it means the world to me. I've always said, the pessimistic side of me, that whenever I launched Wildcat, there'd probably be like 5 people that would buy the book. One of them would probably be my mother. So it's really, really cool that up to 13 or 14 people have backed the book, and that's more than what I thought. Anyway, I appreciate everything. I'm going to go, and hopefully this live stream at the tail end of it ends up we're able to hear everything. I feel my microphone kind of looks a little disjointed out of the laptop, so who knows? You might not even be hearing any of this. So I guess it's time to wrap up. Let's cue the music here. I really like this song, and I might use this temporarily as intro and outro music and all this other stuff. I enjoy live streaming. It's just fun. This has been Mental Junk Food Live, CB Smallwood, at the place where we talk about all things comics, sci-fi, horror, fantasy, pop culture, and everything in between. I hope you join me with my next live stream or whatever next video I'll come up with next. I'll catch you guys later.